All right. Think we're live? How's it going, everyone? Nick Morrow, DFS here with Occupy Fantasy, helping you break down tomorrow's UFC 323 card from a betting perspective, a fight breakdown perspective, and a DFS perspective on both DraftKings and FanDuel. As always, I am going to go through every single fight on the card, give you guys my kind of takes in terms of what I think is going to happen. We're going to discuss DFS plays, ownership. I'm going to leverage the Occupy Fantasy model. And at the end of the show, I will do a dummy build on both DraftKings and FanDuel and give you my best bets for tomorrow's card. It's a fun one. It is the last pay per view on the ESPN deal. That's obviously notable. I believe this card locks at what is it, 6 Eastern, 7 Eastern, 22 hours from now. So, yeah, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 14 fight card. We did have a couple weight misses, but good news is it seems that all the fights are going to be on. So, we got a nice card for DFS, some very live underdogs, in my opinion, some really interesting leverage spots in terms of DFS, and yeah, some really nice bets I like as well. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Nick Morrow DFS. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. Also, check out the links in the description below to get access to the model I'll be discussing throughout the card. Get ownership projections for both sites. Derek Phillips' daily plug. We have the brand new lineup builder, all that good stuff. But those are all the pleasantries. Those are all the advertisements. Let's get into this card here. Shouts out Chris Jones, first guy in chat today. Appreciate you, my man. Saying GSP will win. Shouts out George St. Pierre, unless I'm missing something. Don't think he's fighting on this card. But yeah, let's get into it here. Or did Grant Dawson change his nickname? Maybe that's what you're referring to. But we'll get into that fight. But as always, guys, I like to start at the top of the card and then kind of work my way down. For these pay per views, we do usually have 2 5-round fights. That is once again the case tomorrow. And it's very interesting. Top play in the model this week is Joshua Van. I'm not sure I fully agree with that, but we'll discuss that fight when we get to it. First, we have to talk about the main event here between Merab Dvalishvili and Peter Yan. This is actually a rematch of a fight that took place, when was it? Back in March of 2023. This was not for the title at the time. But it was a 5-round fight. Notably, Peter Yan injured his hand early in that fight, allegedly. He also allegedly went into that fight with an injured shoulder. And I'm going to give my bias here, but it doesn't necessarily matter. I am on the Marab side. Spoiler alert. Peter Yan is one of my favorite fighters. I think aesthetically, if you're someone who likes to watch fighting, he does everything right. Really great striker, good grappler, especially defensively, good in scrambles. And while Marab did take him down a record number 11 times in that fight, Peter did a good job defending the takedowns there as well, even with those injuries, if he was indeed injured. I will say on the money line, looking across the books right now, minus 300 to minus 400, depending on where you're betting. It feels a bit inflated, a little bit disrespectful to Peter, especially when you consider the fact that Marab is fighting for the 4th time this year, looking to defend a title for the 4th time in a calendar year. I think the first fighter to ever do so, at least in the UFC. He looks great. And the thing about Marab, we know this for DFS, he scores tremendously every single time, especially when he's winning. And it's been a long time since he's lost. But 219 fantasy points on DK against Sandhagen, obviously the 120 against O'Malley, similar against Umar. Another great score against O'Malley, Cejudo. These are mostly in decisions outside of the O'Malley fight. So usually when you're paying up, you kind of want that finish. But his takedown ability, his ability to control fights on the mat and to put out volume, even the later rounds, really just makes him one of the best DFS plays of all time. A lot calling him the best bantamweight of all time. I think that's pretty much true. Certainly solidifies that here with the win over Peter. And yeah, if we're looking at ownership on DK, he is the highest owned play on the slate. I do think that's justified. I want to have him in a lot of my lineups. I will say this, though. I do think Peter does pose some interesting threats stylistically. Definitely the better striker here by a wide margin. He's an excellent striker in the clinch with that Muay Thai base, training out of Tiger, Muay Thai in Thailand. Lands 5 significant strikes per minute, defends 85% of the takedowns that are coming against him is one Peter Yan. So if you were looking to maybe stack a fight here, I don't think it's insane to maybe go with this fight in low risk contest because Peter is obviously dirt cheap. You could play him. He only scored 40 fantasy points in that really terrible performance last time out. He gets to 60 or 70, and Marab does what he does. Peter could still be optimal in a loss, and that's optimal, and that's talking high risk. So in low risk, I actually think this fight is very stackable. And if we're looking at the ownership here, I'm looking on another monitor. Don't mind me in that regard. He is very, very low owned. There's enough underdogs in this card that you don't necessarily need to stack fights, but I do think there is some merit to it. We'll talk about it in the co-main event as well a little bit here because historically, Joshua Van does score really well, win or lose. But I do think Marab gets it done. I'm going to have plenty of Marab exposure, though. Marab is going to be my pick, but proceed with some caution. I do think there is a little bit of disrespect on the money line and the price in terms of DFS. Not that Marab's price isn't justified, but Peter does feel a little bit too cheap. I will say, last time out against Marcus McGee, Peter looked good. I mean, he did what he had to get the win there. I thought he could have looked even better there, though, and maybe dominated against a guy who I consider a bit lower level, obviously, than a Peter Yan. Prior to that, against Davis and Figueredo, again, did what he needed to do to get the win. He's on this 3-fight win streak, but just hasn't really looked as dominant as he did on his own title run a couple years ago. So I do think Marab gets it done here. I am a little bit concerned about him cutting weight 4 times in 1 year, taking on an opponent who does pose a lot of stylistic threats. But Marab, to me, one of the best plays on the entire slate. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I said, he's going to be super chalky, but I do want to have Marab in most of my lineups. We'll talk about some best bets later. It's interesting. I live in Massachusetts. DraftKings specifically does not allow betting on like Russian fighters for some reason. So yeah, Peter Yan, whenever he's on a card, you can't bet on his fight. So the fight's not available there. I am looking at some offshores though. There are a few angles, but I don't have any best bets here. Again, I think the money line's too wide. I think Peter's being a little bit disrespected, but Marab is the pick. I don't want to spend too much time on that fight. Certainly could go all day on it, but we have another fun matchup here in the co-main event between Alexandre Pantoja and Joshua Van. And this is really interesting to me because in the Occupy model, and we often say like trust the model, right? Van is one of the top plays, and he is actually the top play, and he's very cheap. But we have Pantoja there as the third best play in terms of OF index, and OF index is really kind of gauging their upside. We're more so talking about high risk plays when we're leaning on OF index. So if Van were to extend this fight, win or lose, I think he'd score tremendously well for his price. That being said, there is a major gap stylistically in his game. Joshua Van, if he were to win the belt here, would be the second youngest fighter in UFC history behind John Jones to capture a UFC title. But to this point, on his run, 81% takedown defense, really hasn't taken on a grappler anywhere near the level of Alexandre Pantoja. Pantoja, good striker. I think he can hang with Van on the feet. He's going to be the bigger fighter here. 2-inch reach advantage. They're both listed at 5'5". I do think Pantoja's a little bit taller, a little bit bigger. But Van is probably the best boxer in the division by a decent margin. I mean, Moreno, who we'll talk about in a little bit, could maybe give him a run for his money there. But when it comes to the grappling, I think that gap is much wider than what we're going to see on the feet. So while I don't want to totally disagree with the model, I do think Pantoja is going to be the pick for me here. And looking at ownership, I mean, Pantoja is very popular. Joshua Van floating around only 20% owned. So if you're looking for leverage, to take the underdog in that co-main event does make some sense. Shouts out Derek Phillips, our daily plug writer. And if you are behind the paywall, you could get his full article, really breaks down everything from a DFS perspective. He gives his own best bets in that as well. But I need to read this excerpt here from him. On a card with minus 300 favorite and Abdul Malik, two of the greatest mixed martial artists and DFS scores of all time, and Pantoja and Marab. It's Joshua Van who tops the Occupy model on both sites as a plus 200 underdog, projected at under 25% owned and fighting against a league champion. It's clear this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to go over the field in tournaments. So if you do have a high risk tolerance, play some Joshua Van. He looks great in the model, but again, just what I see on film is Van really hasn't been tested on the mat, and he's confident in media this week, but to the point that I think it's a little bit ignorant. Like he's saying, no one's seen my grappling, no one's really seen what I can do in terms of jujitsu, but Pantoja's jujitsu is on an absolute different level than pretty much everyone he's faced to this point. We've seen him taken down by guys like Ray Saruya, Cody Durden. I don't think took him down. But regardless, I mean, just the level of competition here is tremendous. I mean, you can say this about Peter in the main event as well. They're just kind of running out of challengers for these guys because unlike the Islam Makhachevs or Ilya Toporias, they're not looking to jump divisions, the Marabs or the Pantojas. That's why their legacy as division champions is what it is. And I do think Pantoja is my preferred play here. I think he gets it done inside the distance. But again, the model's telling us something. Usually, when an underdog is rating better, we need to take notice, and he's very low owned. So, if you're playing high risk contests, there is certainly some merit to getting some Joshua Van exposure. But personally, for me, I'm on the Pantoja side. I think he gets it done on its grappling. But usually, when there's a discrepancy in the model like this, we have to take notice. So, I really just want to emphasize that. Again, on the feet, Joshua Van mixes in the body shots. He does a really good job striking in and out of breaks earlier in his UFC career, kind of a slow starter. It seems like he's kind of gotten away from that. He's very aggressive early now, which we do love to see. But going back to his fight against Charles Johnson, I actually think Pantoja has the better chin here. We've never seen Pantoja knocked out. We've seen him take a lot of damage. I mean, going back to the Figueiredo fight years ago, he's eaten some massive, massive shots from opponents, but he just keeps coming forward like a zombie, just absolutely insane durability. So even if Van does land on him, I do think Pantoja is going to be able to kind of weather that and eventually take him to the mat. 3+ takedowns in each of his last 5 title defenses. Probably would have had more in the Cara France and Asakura fights if he didn't finish those via submission. But again, he's scoring okay. So I don't know that you necessarily need to load up on Pantoja. I do think Van is probably the better play in terms of DFS. But I do have a best bet later on Pantoja. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I really just need to emphasize the fact that the model is loving Joshua Van this week. I can't emphasize that enough. But in that same breath, Pantoja is the third highest rated play. So you probably want exposure to this fight in a lot of your lineups. Like I said, I'm on the Pantoja side, but wouldn't knock anyone for taking a shot on Van. The kid's rise has been tremendous. I know a lot of the guys have cashed a lot on Van on this run, but I just think he's running into a buzzsaw on the mat here against Alexander Pantoja. By far the best grappler he's seen to date. The path to victory is so very clear for Pantoja. If he just stands and bangs, it's going to be very stupid. I think he takes this fight to the mat early and often until he does find that submission. All right, let's take a look at chat here. Again, appreciate you guys jumping in. AFC Angelo, really interesting card. Fairly sure 90 plus Marab, not the full 100. Yeah, I mean, MMA is volatile, right? Anything can happen. We see it all the time. Weird stuff like in the main event. I mean, Aspinall and Gone, like, probably thought you wanted either side of that fight in your lineups, but weird things can happen with eye pokes, fouls. We have Macy Barber on this card who didn't even show up for her main event last time. So not going 100% on a fighter as much as you like them, not a bad idea. But yeah, unique card. Not all fighters are created equal for sure, man. Appreciate the comment there, Angelo. Definitely appreciate you tuning in. And as always, guys, get your questions in. Happy to discuss things too. I mean, we go back and forth. If you don't have questions, always happy to kind of, I don't know, argue a little bit if that's what we want to do. And maybe we do that here because I do think I'm on a bit of an island here. And it's not a confident island, but we got Peyton Talbot taking on a former champion in Henry Cejudo. Is this the right order? No, my bad. I skipped a fight. We got Tatsuro Taira first taking on Brandon Moreno. But again, I am maybe on a bit of an island here. I'm on the Moreno side as the underdog. He's the first underdog so far that I'm going to be backing. Taira has been solid. Really talented young kid out of Japan. The best fighter, male fighter, anyway. I mean, really, either way, out of Japan that the UFC has seen. Coming off that win over Park, lost to Royval. Other than that, he's been pretty dominant. He averages 3.2 takedowns per 15 minutes, scores really well for the most part. And yeah, I mean, he's definitely a prospect on the rise. 17-1 record. His striking has come a very long way since we've seen him debut, but he doesn't throw much volume. He throws kicks. He has a good teep, but he uses it kind of as a rangefinder and then as a means to kind of set up his own takedowns. He does have some power. We saw it against Hernandez. But yeah, I think Taira here would be wise to get his grappling going. The issue is he's taking on a fighter who's extremely well-rounded in Brandon Moreno. And it's not that Moreno's difficult to take down. It's that he has tremendous footwork. We saw this in his fight against Amir Albazi. Albazi, another great grappler, kind of similar to Taira, obviously not on the same level in terms of jiu-jitsu. But I actually think Albazi is maybe an even better wrestler. And I know that's kind of silly to say because Albazi's stock has fallen recently, but Moreno did a great job using footwork there to kind of make it difficult for El Bazi to close distance. And I think a lot of people underrate footwork when they are handicapping, especially in binary matchups like this between a striker and a grappler. I think the footwork for Moreno is going to pose some challenges for Tyra here. All that being said, if Tyra takes him down, I mean, he's going to be very live for the finish. He can also just take his back and win a round or two. And this is just a 3 round fight. I would be more confident in Moreno in a 5 round fight, obviously having that experience. But each of Moreno's last 4 fights have gone 5 rounds or been 5 round fights. And this time around, only going to be three. So I do give him the cardio edge. We've seen Tyra fade a little bit at times. But yeah, this is a fight that I could certainly see going either way. Tyra, not very popular in terms of DFS. Moreno really isn't either. These are two very low on plays. So if you're hunting for underdogs, you're looking for some value. I do really like Moreno. Just a much better striker here. Averages just under 4 significant strikes landed per minute. His 65% takedown defense, again, isn't excellent, but the footwork is so damn good. I think he is able to mostly stay out of range. And if he is taken down, we've seen him taken down by guys like Pantoja, Figueredo, and work his way back to the feet. So I'm pretty confident in his ability to do so. I like the media on Moreno too this week. He seems really locked in. This is a guy who can get into his own head. He seems super confident in this matchup. So as an underdog, I like Moreno here. Would I be surprised if Tyra pulled off the win and took Moreno down, maybe found that choke a little bit? But looking at the money line, it is a closely lined fight. Definitely a fight I could see going either way. Should be very competitive. But Moreno, as an underdog, I do think there's some value on him here. Tyra around a minus 120, minus 130, depending on your book. I like Moreno. He's one of my preferred underdogs here, and he's not going to be very popular. It's just keep in mind if this does go to decision, and it very likely will, regardless of who wins. Moreno doesn't score tremendously well. It's just if you're not finding underdogs that you're confident in, he could still end up optimal. So I like Moreno here. He's going to be one of the underdogs I have pretty heavy exposure to. But at the same time, Tyra, a very young fighter, 7 years younger than Moreno, really talented, and his striking has improved to a point that it does need to be respected. This isn't entirely binary, but I do think the footwork is going to be the difference here. I think Moreno's going to have the bigger moments, land more volume on the feet, and be able to maybe, hopefully, for me anyway, edge out a win on the scorecards. But really fun matchup on flyweight, a fight that could certainly go either way. You're not getting a ton of leverage taking the underdog, but I do think there is more value on Moreno personally. All right, this fight coming up here. I mean, I've gone kind of back and forth on this. We got Peyton Talbot taking on Henry Cejudo. Cejudo has said this is his retirement fight. Cejudo's coach, Santino DeFranco, out of Fight Ready, has said it is his retirement fight as a coach. This is the last hurrah for that camp, that gym, for Henry, the Olympic champion, former double champion in the UFC. And he's taken on the much better level of opponent than a Peyton Talbot. Talbot's one loss came to Rayoni Barcelos, a fight in which he was taken down repeatedly and controlled on the mat. Bounced back really well last time out against Lima, but Lima certainly not anywhere near the level of Cejudo or what Cejudo has been facing in terms of his competition. If the best version of Cejudo showed up here, he's the best underdog on the card. Does that version of Cejudo even exist anymore? No, probably not. At the same time, I do think there is a little bit of value on Henry. The reach advantage here is alarming if you are going to look at Henry as a potential underdog play, 6 inches. But at the same time, he is a great striker. He's good in the pocket. And while Talbot is the better striker, Cejudo never been KO'd professionally, has a really solid chin. Obviously, it's a stereotype in Mexican fighters historically, very tough to put away. And Henry's no exception to that rule. But yeah, I do like Talbot, but it's interesting. These two spent a lot of time training together, doing road work, and I think Talbot like stayed with Henry for a little while. And it's interesting. So Talbot said he had a few other names before Henry he thought he would get to fight, and they all turned him down. Henry actually accepted the fight, but you have to wonder what's going on behind closed doors. I don't know. It's like, did Henry even have another option? Obviously, the UFC likes to kind of build their young fighters on former champions on their way out of the promotion. But at the same time, like, did Henry have other options? Is this a fight he thinks he can win because they've spent time together in the training room? I don't know. Henry did not look great on the scales. He didn't look terrible. But in that Yadong fight, he actually looked better than I think a lot of people expected him to. He won the first round against Marab. I don't know. Am I confident at all in Cejudo as an underdog? No. I'm not. But I do think he's very tough to KO. I do think there's a decent chance this goes the distance. So as an underdog, it wouldn't shock me to maybe see him win the first and potentially the second round, maybe pull off the upset. The more I think about it and the more I kind of watch Henry this week in media and some of his recent fights, the more I'm kind of leaning to Talbot. But I'm going to take a chance here. I'm going to have some Cejudo exposure because when we're looking at the model right now, Cejudo, one of the lowest owned fighters on both sites, just 9% owned over on FanDuel, 17% owned on DK. So if you're looking for a way to get different, I think there's worse ways to go. And as much as I do like Talbot, I think he's extremely talented. I think the KO is going to be tough to come by here unless it's attritional, unless he beats up Henry to the point that the ref just steps in maybe in the third round, in which case he would score really well. But the knockout's not going to come easy. This Gamori dude he KO'd actually lost in PFL today. Cameron Simon's obviously been on a major decline. So as much as I rate the Lima win, I just haven't been necessarily as impressed by Talbot as maybe the market is. And again, this could be an error. Usually, when a fighter says they're going to retire, means red flag. Don't back them. But there are exceptions to that rule. We saw Robbie Lawler against Nico Price. He went out with a bang, literally and figuratively. There are times where things do play out for the old vet. And I'll take a shot or two on Cejudo here. I'm not going to bet on him, even though I do think there is some value on him on the money line. But I think for DFS purposes, if you're hunting for underdogs that are very, very cheap, you can certainly do worse than Cejudo. But again, it's two ships passing in the night, right? I mean, Talbot's on the way up, Cejudo's on the way out, but they know each other. And usually, when guys know each other, they kind of fight closer. It almost turns into a sparring match at times, which could favor Henry here. So I'm going to back Henry with zero confidence. I'm going to throw a little bit on him in terms of DFS exposure. I do think Peyton's a little bit overpriced, if I'm being honest. As talented as he is, he's not the highest volume striker. I mean, we see the 6 significant strikes landed per minute, but in his fights that have gone longer, that number does come down. So I like Talbot. I don't fault anyone for being really bullish on him, but I don't know. I was on Henry for the past week or so, and I can't really talk myself off him entirely. I'm going to have more Henry exposure in DFS than I probably should, and maybe that's an error. But again, I'm not betting either side of this fight. Let's take a quick look at chat here before we move right along. Again, appreciate you guys tuning in. Yeah, this guy's got Marab, Angelo at 161. Might be low on takedowns. Yeah, again, I think we're going to see a better version of Peter Yan, but at the same time, we're also going to see a better version of Marab. His striking has come a long, long way since the last time those two met up. Angelo with me on this as well. Moreno extremely well rounded, even more so than Roy Val, you could argue. Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. I do like Moreno a lot. What is Talbot ownership between studs? Chuck, question here from Charnicki. Let me pull this up. He's pretty low owned, sub 20%. So Henry's low owned, but so is Talbot. So again, if you like Talbot, he's not a bad way to get different. I think either side of that fight is a good way to get different. And yeah, man, I'm with you. It's like the price is just so tempting. And I always say this, like on these bigger cards where maybe you're struggling to find really cheap underdogs, even in tough matchups, I like to go with talent because we saw it in like the Johnny Walker fight. Not that he's the best example, but we when you get a really cheap guy who has had success in the UFC, has shown to have upside, they're usually undervalued, even if they're in a tough matchup. So I don't mind taking some shots on Cejudo here. Again, I don't want to sit here and say you should as well. Like I don't feel great about it, but I do think the price is appealing at low ownership. Another matchup between two passing ships in the night here. We have Jan Blachowicz taking on Bogdan Guskov. And once again, I find myself siding with the old crafty vet. So I think Blachowicz's power is a bit overrated. Honestly, he, I think, has more submissions than knockouts professionally, which is kind of funny when you think about it. But unlike Cejudo, he's looked pretty decent lately. I honestly thought he was really close to winning that Alberg fight. Thought that fight could have gone either way. Against Pereira, going to decision, taking him down 3 times. I mean, he did better against Pereira than most of the guys in this division, albeit that was 2 years ago. But really, the Alberg fight, while it was boring, while it was low volume, it showed me Jan can still be competitive. Blachowicz, he is a powerful striker. I actually think he's the better grappler in the this matchup. I also think he has really strong leg kicking ability. He's taking on a fighter in Guskov who's kind of been sun running, in my opinion. What I mean by sun running is he's been a little bit lucky. I mean, the Krylov KO is obviously impressive. Krylov has been KO'd again since then, and he kind of ran into that shot. Before that, Elakina, on short notice, was able to take him to the ground and control him for a round. Ryan Spawn had to move divisions. Puga no longer in the UFC. So while Bogdan has looked good and he has outperformed expectations, I don't really rate him all that highly. I don't know that he's a top 5 or top 10 even light heavyweight at this point. It is kind of a shallow division, but I think there's some value on Blachowicz here. And right now, I mean, depending on your book, BetOnline actually has Blachowicz as the underdog. So if you do want to back him, do some shopping. But yeah, I think this fight probably ends inside the distance. Bogdan hasn't gone to a decision since I think his second or third professional fight. I think it's been 9 years since he's gone to the scorecards. Blachowicz definitely fighting to decisions more often lately. But Guskov's style is very much kill or be killed. He comes forward, but when he moves backwards, his arms kind of go down by his side. So I think there are going to be openings for Blachowicz there to potentially find the finish. I also think he has a path to victory on the mat if he chooses to go that direction. All this being said, he's 42. We got to take that into account, right? Born in 1983, 11 years older than his opponent in this matchup. That's certainly a red flag, but he looked pretty good against Olberg and Pereira. And if you put Guskov in those matchups, I think the results are even worse for Guskov. And if you look at who Guskov's beating, I think Blachowicz clears all those opponents. Obviously, MMA math is flawed. Blachowicz hasn't looked great, but I do think Guskov's a little bit overrated off of results against pretty low level opponents. So I'm going to be on Yan here. I love the talent. I think he's the better striker defensively by a pretty wide margin. Guskov is going to put out volume. He's been impressive, but I think Jan's the better grappler. So maybe Father Time wins this one, in which case Guskov gets it done. But again, it's a volatile fight between two guys with power. It could go either way. But looking at ownership right now, I mean, we're seeing, whereas Blachowicz sub 20% on both sides, Guskov around 25% on both sides. So there's a little bit of a leverage opportunity here in a fight that I don't think goes the distance at a very high clip. I'll talk about best bets later. I do have a bet here, and it's not specifically on Jan, but it's a pretty interesting spot. So again, there's a lot of this on this card. There's the old vet against the young guy. You got to kind of pick and choose your spots, in my opinion. It's not an exact science. I know the last pay-per-view card, all the young guys were winning. We've seen other times like Figgy turning back the clock against Jackson. Like there's old guys winning fights too. So you can't just say one or the other is going to happen. It really depends on the matchup. It really depends on the fighter. And here, I do like Blachowicz to get it done. If he has even 80 to 90% of what he should have left in that gas tank. So again, I like Blachowicz here. I do think Guskov is probably more likely to find the early finish. So at 7,800, he's still a pretty good DFS play in his own right. If I'm playing a bunch of lineups, which I probably am, I'm going to have some Guskov exposure. But Blachowicz does look pretty solid to me. Pretty decent building block on both sides. Speaking of binary matchups, we have one here between Grant Dawson and Manuel Torres. So Dawson, one of the better grapplers, not only in the division but in the UFC, very underrated in general because his striking just isn't all that good. I mean, it's improved a little bit. He lands 3.2 significant strikes per minute. Most of those are actually coming on the ground, absorbs 2.1. But we saw in the Bobby Green fight, overconfident there, got clipped early. Just a terrible showing. I mean, if he wins that fight, where is he now? But did look great last time out against Ferreira. Wins over Garcia Selecki. I don't rate all that highly, but if he can take you to the mat, he can dominate. Damir Ismagulov, Marco Madsen, two really talented grapplers. He dominated. And he's taking on a guy, Emmanuel Torres, here, where he is going to have that grappling advantage over. The issue is Torres is a very powerful striker coming off a KO win over Drew Dober. We saw him sub Chris Duncan, who's also on this card, Nicholas Mota, Chinny Guy, Camacho, a Chinny Guy. I'm on the Dawson side here, I will say, but I am going to be holding my breath because if this fight is taking place on the feet, Torres is very, very live to find that KO. I think he's one of the more popular underdogs. Yeah, 32% over on DK. Um, 27% over on FanDuel. So there's actually a little bit of leverage potential in getting some Dawson exposure. The issue is he's very expensive. There's a lot of fighters in this price range that I like, but he has takedown upside. 6 takedowns last time out against Ferrer, scored nearly 130 in a decision. He's live for the submission. He's live for a ground and pound finish, and he scored 100 plus in 3 straight fights. So Dawson, good tournament play. I think he gets it done, but the chin and the striking is of major concern. I do another stream with my brother for another site. He's very, very bullish on Torres this week. So I do want to say not only him, but there's a few people I know pretty sharp that are on Torres. It's scary. It's binary. And the issue with these binary fights is like if the guy, either fighter imposes the game the way they want to, if you're backing the other guy, you're going to look like an idiot. So I'm on Dawson here with some confidence, but if he gets starched, I mean, it is what it is. I don't want to be overexposed to him, but he's pretty low owned. It's going to be pretty easy to get over the field on him. The interesting line movement fight of the week, and obviously we had the Bulgarian kind of chaos a few weeks ago, almost months ago now. This fight here between Terrence McKinney and Chris Duncan is raising some red flags. I like Duncan here, but McKinney is arguably one of the better one-round fighters in the UFC. When he wins, he scores tremendously. McKinney's greatest issue is his cardio is terrible, right? But when he's winning, he's averaging what, like 120 fantasy points? He's averaging 80 per, even with losses included. But back to back wins where he's scoring 120. Prior to that, a win over Murat, who's not a great fighter, 130. But this is a guy who finds quick finishes. But if he can't find those quick finishes, he quickly fades away and his opponents are able to take him out. This fight, very, very likely to go to finish inside the distance. Excuse me. I think you're going to want exposure to this fight in most of your lineups. Not a fight to stack, but have one or the other, right? Looking at ownership, Duncan 23% owned on DK compared to 27 over on FanDuel at the time I'm recording this or presenting it rather. McKinney though super chalky, almost 40% over on DK, 42% over on FanDuel. Yeah, I can pull up the graphic for this one just because McKinney's floating here at 35% when Brian put up these slides, but he's cheap. And as far as underdogs go, his ceiling is tremendously high again because his win condition is via early finish. But I think in terms of technical ability on the feet, especially, Duncan is the better fighter. And we've seen Duncan put away. I do think he's a little bit chinny. I think both these guys can be described as glass cannons, but Duncan seems to be improving. Training out of American Top Team. We just talked about Grant Dawson. That's his main training partner now. McKinney all week talking about how he wants to grapple here. The issue is, I do think McKinney's the better grappler. I think he's going to gas out if he tries to grapple. It takes a lot of energy to grapple a guy who has decent takedown defense, and Chris Duncan does. We saw last time out against Rebecca, his durability looked good there, able to outclass and outstrike a guy in Rebecca who is extremely dangerous on the feet. So I'm on the Duncan side here, but this is a volatile fight. It's probably going to be a car crash. And again, I think you want to be on one or the other in a lot of your lineups because I think we're going to see an early finish here one way or the other. Again, I think I'll side with the technical advantages of Duncan. I think more likely than not, he can stay safe for 2 or 3 minutes and then take over. But those 2 or 3 minutes, you're going to be holding your breath. A lot of people this week are like, hey, just live bet Duncan. Just wait and see if McKinney can finish him or not. And then if he can't, you can just jump on Duncan, right? The issue is books are on to that. The issue is everyone's onto that. If everyone's saying it, you're not going to find that value you're looking for. If you are looking at a live book, obviously keep your eye on the line. There are exceptions, but everyone knows McKinney's a gasser. Everyone knows he's dangerous early. So maybe bet McKinney round one and then put the rest or put a few units on Duncan otherwise. But Duncan could win round one as well. We've seen McKinney put away early at times by the likes of Bonfim and a few others. Ribovic. Both guys are better hammers than they are nails, but there is some leverage opportunity here if you're looking to go to Duncan. It's not that he's low owned; it's just he is considerably low owned than McKinney. But again, we're seeing crazy line movement. Excuse me. Duncan was up to like a minus 180 at one point, I think. Now this line is pretty much even across most books. So for whatever reason, it seems like a lot of people are jumping onto the McKinney side. It's interesting too. If you look at weigh-ins today, Duncan was on the scale for half a second. They announced the weight, pushed him off before they even settled the scale. So I think maybe people were concerned about him missing weight. The UFC might have done him a favor, or at least the guy who was weighing him in. McKinney actually retweeted, if you check on Twitter, a clip of that, and he said he owes me some money. So yeah, McKinney maybe has a baked-in excuse here, but again, keep your eye on the line movement. Things are a little fishy in this one, and I hate to be that guy. You always got to just be cautious and be aware of everything going on. But I mean, there's angles to just bet this fight under. It's probably the safe way to go. Let's take another quick look at chat here. Again, appreciate you guys tuning in. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going through the fight by fight breakdown right now. At the end, I will do a build on both DraftKings and FanDuel and give you guys my best bets. Next fight here, we got the ladies. We got Macy Barber taking on Karine Silva. So Macy Barber has been out of action now since I believe what is it, March? Yeah, March of 2024. She had two fights scheduled in between, including a main event against Erin Blanchfield that she pulled out of during walkouts. She fainted in the back. It's not a good sign, honestly. But that being said, if there was ever an improvement at weigh-ins this week, it's on the Barber side. She looks jacked. She looks strong. She looks built. Maybe a bit of a head case, but I do think this is the type of matchup where she should be able to find success in. Macy Barber, historically, not great takedown defense, but she is good in scrambles. She's the better striker in this matchup and the better fighter up against the cage. Karine Silva has been pretty impressive. But it's like, what's her best win? I was there for the Moroz fight. Is what it is. I mean, Ariane Lipsky, decent win. Barbosa last time out, going into decision. Like, she's only recording takedowns against pretty low level opponents, and I don't know. I rate what she's been doing, but kind of similarly to a Talbot, obviously not on the same level. Like, it's against a much lower level of opponent than what Macy's been taking on. Well, Macy has been a head case. I do think she's the better fighter here. I think she is deserving of being top five in this division. And she's the younger fighter here as well by 5 years. So if her head's on straight, and I think it is, and she actually shows up for the fight, I do think Barber's the side. She lands 4.7 significant strikes per minute, only absorbs 2.9 compared to Silva, who actually has a negative striking differential, lands 2.7 compared to 2.8 absorbed. But Silva does land 2.3 takedowns per 15 minutes. This is a fight that could go either way. And talking about the money line, I mean, it feels a little bit wide, minus 200. It's closed a little bit. Like, if you could get a minus 180, minus 170 on Barber, I don't mind taking her on the money line. This fight very likely to go the distance. But she looks so good in weigh-ins today. Like, I was not confident in backing her because I was concerned about will she show up? I mean, where's her head at? But it seems like she had an excellent camp. She looks muscle bound for the first time ever. And while I do rate Silva as a grappler, I mean, she's fairly predictable. And similar to the Moreno fight, I think Barber has the better footwork here. Again, I think she's going to be very tough to take down in open space and up against the cage. She's really good finding underhooks, kind of circling around and getting the better position against her opponents. If she's taken down early, she should be able to work her way back to the feet. So I'm on Barber here with some confidence. Not a fight I necessarily think you need a ton of exposure to DFS for. Barber has scored better than most women do in going to decision consistently, but not to the point that I think it's someone you need to be heavily exposed to. Silva herself as an underdog is very live. Feel free to mix her into your exposures, but again, I'm on the Barber side. I think she looks good here. As long as she's not in her own head, I think it's the type of fight she should be able to get it done in. Interesting fight here, I believe at lightweight between Faris Ziem and Nazim Sadikov. So these are two very different fighters stylistically, even though they're both strikers. Ziem, French guy, kind of similar to Cyril Gane, similar to Imavov, similar to a lot of the guys fighting out of France right now. A very cerebral kickboxer. He has great footwork, circles away from the strengths of his opponent, doesn't put out much volume, but when he does put out volume, he's very accurate. And yeah, he doesn't absorb much damage. We did see him kind of turn it up last time against Mike Davis, albeit Mike Davis seemed compromised. That was the fight that took place, I think, in Abu Dhabi or Qatar, or one of those Middle Eastern countries. And they said they just painted the locker room, and Davis was suffering from fumes and stuff. So Ziem kind of dominated there to the point that I think a lot of us were surprised. But before that, wins over Frivola, Herbert, Puelas, I don't rate, but the others, pretty impressive. And then Sadikov, man, this guy's a dog. Ziem, while he's like the technical guy, point fighter, Sadikov's going to eat shots and keep coming forward. Sadikov lands 5.5 significant strikes per minute. He absorbs 5.6. We saw the Borshev fight him take a ton of damage against Moda early, took a ton of damage. But this is a guy who just takes shots and keeps moving forward. It's going to be a question of who can get their game going, right? I think if Ziem can keep things quote unquote pretty, kind of fight at range, circle away. He's going to win via decision, maybe convincingly. But if Sadikov can make it ugly, he's very, very live for the upset. I do slightly prefer the ZM side here, but I will say ZM, when he gets his game going, isn't scoring all that well. If I'm playing one of these guys in DFS, it's probably Sadikov, but a fight that could go either way. Two strikers, two very different styles. It's going to be a question of who can kind of impose their preferred game plan here. I do lean the ZM side, especially this being in the big cage in front of a crowd. But Sadikov is an absolute dog. He's going to eat shots, keep moving forward. We saw kind of Borshev picking him apart early, almost a similar stylistic matchup. Borshev has been kind of hittable lately, though. He is slowing down, where I think ZM does continue to improve. I don't really think either fighter grapples here, if I'm being completely honest. ZM lands more takedowns per 15 minutes, but this is probably a fight that mostly takes place on the feet. Sadikov lands much more volume, but he also absorbs much more damage. So, again, it's a question of who's going to get their game going. I really don't like seeing much for DFS. He's cheap, though. You can maybe mix him in. I think Sadikov is the higher ceiling, but if I'm picking a fighter here, for me, it's going to be Ferez, just the cleaner striker of the two. But Sadikov, man, he's a dog. Yeah, he's got that dog in him. He can maybe weather that early storm and then take over as this fight wears on. Speaking of dogs, we got Marvin Vettori here against Bruno Ferreira. Vettori on a 3-fight losing streak, albeit against elite level of competition. Cannonier Dvalishvili Allen looked pretty good against Allen. Kept that fight close. Obviously, Allen's stock is rising off that win over Renair de Ritter. The Dvalishvili fight was a bit outclassed on the feet there. Cannonier, he had huge moments early. Then he took about as much damage as anyone could, but he landed 153 significant strikes over 5 rounds there. Scored okay in a decision loss. This is just a 3-round fight. Taking in a guy in Bruno Ferreira who has a huge power advantage, but Vettori known for his chin. He's never been KO'd. So what do we expect here? I don't know. I think Vettori this week seems pretty locked in. His brother passed away earlier in the year. He's been dealing with a lot of issues outside of the cage. And he's like, I got here. I was fighting on a sign. I was challenging for the title on my grappling. And he's kind of been willing to stand and trade lately to his own detriment. Here against Bruno, I think he is going to try to mix into grappling a little bit. And Bruno, while he does have that one-shot KO power, I don't know that he's going to be able to crack the chin of Vettori. So I'm on Vettori here, and it feels weird backing a fighter on a 3-fight losing streak, but he looked good against Allen. And looking at the money line right now, Vettori is the slight favorite. He's my preferred side here. I just don't know that he scores all that well in a win. Again, similar to the last fight, I actually think the underdog's a better DFS play because of the upside, but Vettori, I think, is likely to get the win. But look at the Dvalishvili fight, 72 points. I mean, Costa, that was a 5-rounder. Hollins, that was a 5-rounder. We don't have a ton of sample, honestly, on him in 3-round decisions, but he doesn't score that well in 3 rounds. And I think Vettori gets it done. Maybe he could find a finish late, but I think more likely than not, he's able to extend this fight. That chin's going to hold up, and this goes to distance. But again, if you're playing either for DFS, I do think Ferreira probably the better side. Let me take a quick look at the graphic, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, McKinney, I mentioned, very popular as an underdog, as is Torres. 3 of the highest owned plays on this slate are underdogs: McKinney, Torres, Guskov. And I'm on the Duncan side, I'm on the Dawson side, I'm on the Yan side. So that's where my leverage is coming in. We'll get to Abdul Malik in a bit, but again, we already talked about the co-main there. Clicking. Next fight here we have between Jalen Turner, formerly retired, taking on Edson Barboza. Turner retired after his last fight against Ignacio Bahamondes, where he's quickly submitted. Another guy kind of similar to Macy Barber, who gets in his own way a bit of a head case, for lack of a better term. He found God this camp. He says he's rejuvenated. He looked good at weigh-ins, and this is a guy who cuts a crazy amount of weight to make 155 pounds. But a pretty favorable matchup here against a fighter in Edson Barboza that I am a major fan of. I love Barboza, one of my favorite fighters on the roster, but I don't like that Barboza moved back up to 155. He was competitive down at featherweight, actually looked half decent against Murphy. He was outclassed there, but going 5 rounds against a guy who could soon be fighting for the title, obviously impressive. Sadiq Youssef weathered an early storm there and then took over, and then the win over Correntillo. He was actually on a pretty good run. Then he moves back up to 155, looks tentative against close. He was competitive in that fight. Just didn't really look like himself, though. And again, this is a guy who's getting up there in age, more so getting up there in war, like damage. And I just don't think we're going to see the best version of Barboza here. I think Turner's super dangerous early. I rate him as the better grappler. And he's going to be huge when these two step in the cage. The reach advantage only listed at 2 inches. I think that's wrong. The leg reach too on Turner is tremendous, but Turner I think could go to the takedown well here. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Barbosa decent takedown defense, but he's going to be outsized, and it's been a while since we've seen Barbosa really outsized. Excuse me. But getting up there in age, obviously the weight cut, it was tough for him to 145. But now he's going to be running into a lot of power and just dangerous stuff here at the 155-pound division. Stylistically, again, Turner long, lands 5.5 significant strikes per minute, the better submission grappler here. Barbosa would be wise to try to get the leg kicks going early, but if he's throwing any naked leg kicks, Turner has an excellent 1-2 up the middle. I am backing Turner here to find that early finish. And if we're looking at DFS, he's pretty low owned on DK. He's very expensive at 9,300, but he's a guy who scores really well in his wins. Obviously, the win over Bobby Green, 113. Moicano, he should have won that fight, right? He knocked him down, thought he knocked him out, walked away with his hands up, but Moicano recovered and then took him out. But a bunch of wins here where he's finishing in the first round, scoring over 100 points, fought competitively with the likes of Dan Hooker, Matuz Gamrock, two of the better fighters in the division. And yeah, Edson, as much as I like him, I just think he's past his prime. The speed advantage that he's had is no longer really a thing. He's still dangerous, but I think Turner is just going to be the better fighter in this matchup. Um, Again, I always say, like, if you're looking for dogs, maybe bet on talent. Barbosa has certainly shown to have a high ceiling throughout his career, but this is just a really tough matchup for him. Looking at the money line, it's got a bit out of hand. I think there's as much steam on Turner today as any fighter, floating around minus 400 now. But Barbosa just doesn't really look the same anymore up at 155. Spent most of his career there, went down to 145, like I said. I don't like this move back up. I'm going to be on Turner here, but again, take that with a grain of salt because Turner just retired and now he's back. That's a red flag historically. So maybe he's low on for a reason, but I do like him as a way to get a little bit different. Another fight here that I'm going to be heavily exposed to, and I'm going to be on the Iwo Baranuski side of things. So Baranuski took on this guy named Muhammad Ali on Contender Series over the summer, and Ali was honestly one of the more highly regarded prospects on the entire season. Just huge Brazilian guy, great striker, fluid on the feet, and excellent grappler. I think I'd have to pull up the odds here. Let me see if I can find them quickly. Um, but yeah, he was a huge dog. Yeah, plus 250. Not as huge as I necessarily thought. But Baranowski, since he's gone pro, all of his wins have come via first round finish. Usually, when we have these guys that all their wins come via finish, we're concerned about the cardio, right? But with Baranowski, 16-3 amateur record, he's gone to the decision a bunch of times. He's an underrated grappler, super dangerous on the feet, wildly aggressive, taking on a guy here in Ibu Aslan, who I just don't rate all that highly. Aslan, once he was taken down by Kudalaba, it looked really tentative last time out against Elakina. I mean, I don't know. So some would say maybe they were both trying to counter one another. I think it was more the result of Oslo not wanting to be taken down because in all his wins, even earlier in his career, he's running forward, he's crashing into the pocket. And if he does that here, I think he's in trouble against Evo. If he's tentative here, I think he's in trouble against Evo. I think the UFC really likes this Baranowski kid. And again, Polish fighter on a card with Blachowicz. I think he's going to get some eyes on him. I got to kind of think of what the UFC is looking to do. Very talented fighter out of Poland. The younger fighter here by a couple years, still undefeated. And while he's a bit small for the division, I mean, he more than makes up for it in skill. Better grappler here. I think Aslan has to be wary of that takedown threat. And yeah, we've seen Aslan taken out in the past. I don't think it's going to be any different here for him. So Ewo to me, one of my favorite plays on the slate. And if we're looking at ownership, around 22% on DK, 26 over on FanDuel, I think he's under owned, if I'm being completely honest. At the same time, there is always volatility. When you get up into these higher weight classes, Aslan definitely has enough power to put him away, even though we haven't seen Baranowski put away. But I am on the Baranowski side here. I'm super bullish on him. I'm going to be very heavily exposed to him. The stats are funny. Obviously, he found a quick KO, but 12 significant strikes per minute so far in the UFC. That's not enough a sample of the data to really take into account. But one of my favorite plays, Iwo Baranowski, very interesting prospect fighting out of Poland at 205, a division desperate for some interesting prospects. Speaking of prospects, or maybe not, we got Mansur Abdul Malik here taking on Antonio Tricoli. Abdul Malik, pretty highly regarded at middleweight, still undefeated at 8-0, but disappointing, honestly, in a lot of his fights. Last time out against Brundage, that fight it shows as a win here, but the commission actually changed it to a draw on the scorecards. I think it was illegal. Was it a knee or a headbutt? Either way, that fight got turned into a draw because they didn't score that third round. And there's like people on Twitter who think Abdul Malik has been carrying his opponents. This is a guy who should be finishing guys like Todorovic or Klein really quickly, especially Klein, but carrying them into the second or even third round. So yeah, if you want to talk about tinfoil hats and the FBI and all that good stuff, maybe proceed with some caution in this one. That being said, Tricoli is not a UFC level fighter. Abdul Malik rates as the second best play in the model in terms of OF index. The thing is, he is going to be very popular. 24% owned on DK, 48% owned on FanDuel. I don't want any exposure to Tricoli, if I'm being honest, but I do think Abdul Malik could be a bit overowned. Tricoli himself been playing poker lately. Wants to be a professional poker player. Seems completely checked out. Got submitted by Trayshawn Gore. Lost to Abus Magomedov by KO. I mean, he just hasn't looked good at all at the UFC level. So I think the UFC is trying to boost the stock of one Mansour Abdul Malik here. He is a good play for DFS. Just proceed with some caution if you're looking to bet him in round one, because there are rumors he's been carrying fighters into the second and third. Do I buy into that? I don't know, a little bit. Not necessarily entirely, but definitely get some exposure to Abdul Malik. Just keep in mind he is popular. If you are building with him, you're going to have to get different with some of the rest of your lineup. One more fight here, guys, and I will check out chat if you guys have any questions. We'll also get to the dummy builds on DraftKings and FanDuel, and we will also what's it called? Get to the best bets, all that good stuff. I forgot to mention earlier there was a weight miss. Yeah, Bruno Ferreira missed weight in the Vittori fight, so didn't look too sucked out or drained on the scales. Maybe as a small middleweight, he was trying to kind of close that gap, get a bit of an advantage. But the fight is on. But again, it just more so puts me on Vittori than I already was. Another fighter who missed weight here, we have Marion Santos. Last time out, looked good against Sadiq Youssef, featherweight, but they both fought up at 155 pounds. He missed weight by a pound and a half here. Didn't try to take the extra hour and a half to make weight. This guy's a little bit overrated, in my opinion. I mean, he won the Ultimate Fighter last season. Really good striker. People want to compare him to Anderson Silva because their body type. I mean, he's nothing like Anderson Silva. Silva is so fluid. Excuse me, need a sip. Um, Santos a little bit rigid in his approach, and we go through his three wins in the UFC. I mean, Con Offley to capture that Ultimate Fighter title, not someone I rate all that highly. Francis Marshall, I mean, Santos spent most of the fight on his back there. I think that was kind of a consensus robbery. And he did look good against Yusuf, but Yusuf's small for 145, both of them up at 155. Santos can't really make weight consistently at 145. Just, I don't know, tough to put too much in that performance. And he scored terribly for DFS. So 9,100. I really don't like Santos very much here. On the other side, we do have Mohamed Naimov, who's kind of a cheater, honestly. I mean, against Nathan Wood grabbing the cage, we've seen that in a lot of his fights. A little bit, I don't know, inconsistent, taking on a low level of competition, but he's the better grappler here. And Santos in that Marshall fight kind of exposed that part of his game. I don't know. I'm slightly on the Santos side here, I think, in terms of a pick, but I've gone back and forth. I mean, I might just end up on Naimov, if I'm being completely honest, as I'm talking through this out loud, because Naimov trains at altitude. People want to talk about cardio. I think it's fine. I think he's able to get the grappling going here. He was able to control Grodd for a decent amount of that fight up against the cage. And yeah, I don't know. I just think Santos is overrated. The fact he missed weight is a bit of a red flag. I think the UFC would rather have Santos win here. He's pretty marketable, but yeah, it's just a lower level matchup. I just think if you're looking for dogs, 7,100 for Naimov, who's probably going to have to go to the takedown well, a decent dog to take some shots on for DFS. And again, Santos, unless he finds a KO, which I don't really think he will, he's not going to score all that well. So I'd rather be on Naimov here, regardless of the pick. I actually do have a bet on this fight, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But Santos, I mean, good striker, better striker here. I just think he's going to be taken down. I will say, I mean, if you're a big fan of the Fighting Nerds, Santos did just change over to that camp a few months ago. That would have just had everyone on Santos, right? Obviously, they've kind of regressed a bit in terms of their public perception, but I don't know. I could see this one going either way. I kind of lean Santos just because he's going to be so much bigger. But Naimov's alive, man. I think he could find the takedowns. And if you're looking at the money line, the line's closed a little bit. He's still floating around plus 200, depending on your book. So I would rather play Naimov here, regardless of who I pick in this one. I'm about to finalize an article for picks after this, which you can find on my Twitter. But a fight that could go either way. So I would rather play the 7,100 guy for sure. Um, all right. Any chance Barboza upsets Turner? Looks shredded at weigh-in. So there's always a chance, right? And I'm a huge fan of Barboza. But Barbosa always looks shredded every single time. I mean, you can look at any way in his career. This guy looks tremendous. I mean, 0% body fat, regardless of weight class. And I will say this, if he can extend the fight past the first round, as the fight wears on, he's going to become more and more live. We have seen Turner's gas tank fade at times. Obviously, Turner, too, coming out of that retirement. So, yeah, Corey, he's got a chance for sure, man. I just do think Turner's the side here. I think he's going to probably be able to find the early finish. And if we go back to the Sadiq fight, like Yusuf almost put Barbosa away really quickly in that one. He just didn't look good against close last time out. And that's why I'm on Turner. But again, I probably shouldn't be so confident in a guy coming off of a temporary retirement. So keep that in mind. Again, appreciate you guys all tuning in. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Before we do the dummy build, one last look at the graphic and the model here. Van, model loves him. I'm more so on the Pantoja side, but if you're playing a bunch of lineups, might be wise to hedge. But again, I do think Pantoja gets it done. Abdul Malik looks great here. Hopefully, he's got the right people around him. He doesn't try to extend this fight because he should steamroll Tricoli. And as much as the model likes Pantoja a lot as well. Kind of tells us to have one side or the other in this one. Looking at ownership, Merab and Pantoja, understandably the two most popular fighters here, the two most dominant champions on the roster right now. McKinney, Torres, and Guskov, all underdogs with quick finish upside. I'm picking the favorites in those fights, so looking for some leverage there. And then again, Derek talked through this, why the model really likes Van. It is a great opportunity for leverage. All right, let's start on DK. And I think Marab's kind of tough to get away from, right? I really do like him here. As much as I like Pantoja, I think if I'm picking one or the other, it's going to be Marab. From there, it gets a little bit tricky. I mean, again, I see very high ownership on guys like Torres and McKinney. I kind of want to get away from that if I can. I think Chris Duncan's a good leverage opportunity. I'm going to have to find some value, though. And I don't know that I want to go to Cejudo as much as I did say I was going to be backing him. I want to get Baranowski in here. I love his upside. I think he has quick win bonus upside. Can find a quick KO potentially. As far as other cheap options go, Moreno, one of my favorite value plays. I mean, if you think Van can extend the fight, he's a great option. I will say Naimov or Cejudo in this range, probably my favorite two options. Naimov feels a little bit safer. I think you could go with one or the other. What's that leave us at 8,300? This is tough. I mean, ZM probably doesn't score that well. Vittori doesn't score that well. If I'm picking between the two, I guess it's Vittori, just hoping he does what he says and leans on the takedowns. But this is a good build. I mean, if you're going with the model, go ahead, take Naimov out of there, get Van in. I think that is the way Occupy model would tell you to go. And if you want to come off Vittori, maybe you can go to. I wouldn't leave out both main events. I'd leave Marab in, honestly. But if you get rid of Iwo, maybe you go Blachowicz, and then you find yourself on. I don't know. I don't love Tyra. It's tricky, right? You got to kind of get creative here. Instead of Duncan, maybe we go with McKinney. Obviously, that fight's a car crash. That's going to land us on something like, I don't know, Turner. I do like this. But like I said, I am more so going to be here with Duncan and no Van. Either Naimov or Cejudo. I prefer Naimov. And then we'll probably go, not Barber. What else did I forget to upgrade? Something. Oh yeah, I got Ewo instead of Blachowicz. But yeah, you guys kind of see how I'd be building for the most part of DK. FanDuel, we got the MVP spot. Guys I would consider an MVP. I mean, Abdul Malik for sure. Marab for sure. Pantoja, sure. But I think I would want Marab more often than not. I think if you want to go balanced, you could go Ewo there. Maybe I'm too bullish on him. We're getting some leverage going to Dawson if we want to. Let's see who's cheap over here. I'm someone who plays more on DK these days, but I think you definitely got to look at the pricing between the sites, right? I mean, if you like Torres, playing him on FanDuel makes a lot of sense. Uh, let's see. Again, I think you can stack this fight, honestly. Peter Yan could score pretty well. I mean, we could go with Silva. I'm taking Macy, though. I try not to build with fighters I'm picking against in just my first or second build. Obviously, as I build more and more lineups or use the builder, I'm totally comfortable doing that. But yeah, let's go Moreno again. I really do like him. Um, Not crazy about Vittori. I see you, Angel. I'll get to that question in just a second. I don't know. Blahovic, Duncan. What are we left with? And Sadikov. Yeah, I don't mind Sadikov. Like I said, I'm picking Zium, but Sadikov more likely to score well there. Something like this. Obviously, you can kind of move things around. Question here from Angelo, and it's a good one. How much salary are you willing to leave in 150 on the slate? Feels like a lot less than usual. Yeah, pricing is tight. My kind of thought is you don't need to set a rule, but like let's say I don't know, like let's start with let's go to DK because I think more of us are on DK. Like your favorite dogs. Say you like Peter Yan to get it done, and Joshua Man. I don't know. Like if you're taking multiple underdogs, I'd say anywhere up to 1,000, honestly. Um, but yeah, there's enough decent underdogs on this slate that I don't think you have to leave salary. But as a way to get different, there's plenty of ways to go. Probably don't see a world where both these guys are winning. Honestly, I think Peter at 6,700 makes things really easy. But I'm all over Marab here. I don't know. I'm just trying to build something where I like it, but I'm also leaving salary real quick. Let's go McKinney, Moreno, Guskov. That seems like too much. 3,300. Don't need to play Cejudo. We could get Abdul Malik. I don't know, 500. Like I said, up to 1,000, I'd feel good. Honestly, MMA is so volatile; anything can happen. Like I wouldn't even set the rule. Like if you're building for upside, you can leave almost anything. But if you're building a lineup or two, I'd try to not leave 1,000. Probably less than that, if I'm being completely honest. But again, I'd have to play with the builder on stream to maybe figure out that exact number. All right, guys, I got my best bets for you here. We went 3-2 last card. We've been 3-2, I think 3 or 4 cards in a row. We've had a few bad beats. Record now 43-37 after some rough goes of it early on when we started the show. But here's my angles here. So now I'm off plus 3.5, right? If all three judges give it 29-28 to Santos, you still win. I think this fight very likely goes to decision. I'm on Naimov here. You can take him on the money line as well, but again, I'm just trying to get this record up here. So I do like Naimov on the point spread near even money. That's excellent to me. Ewo by KO or sub minus 145 is tremendous value in my opinion. I'd be shocked if that fight went the distance. I rate him much higher than Ebo, so I'm going to be on Evo there. Vittori versus Ferreira over 2.5. Ferreira obviously has that KO power, but I think this fight goes long because of Vittori's chin. Blahovic versus Guskov under 2.5. Two guys with power. Guskov hasn't gone to a decision in years. I mean, 5+ years, like since I think his second or third professional fight. So I do like the under there. And then Pantoja by KO or submission plus 120. You could also just take it by submission. You can try to pick around, but I do think Pantoja gets it done probably on the mat. And honestly, by submissions plus 150, I went with the plus 120 because maybe he gets a ground and pound, or maybe we've seen Van put out by someone like Charles Johnson. Pantoja has more power than Johnson, so just to stay safe, I do think it's going to be by sub though. But to stay safe, let's just go with the KO sub, 30 cents. To also get the KO in our range of outcomes, I think is worth it. A few long shots for you. Abdul Malik round two. Is he going to carry Tricoli to the second round? If he does, plus 380 feels like value to me. Shouts out Jake. He was talking about this one, but Baranowski, the better grappler in that matchup against Aslan. I think him by sub plus 500. Very live there. The McKinney Duncan ends in round two. If McKinney's a little bit tentative because he tends to gas out, says he wants to wrestle, or Duncan does what he plans to and extends his fight, either fighter could win to round two at plus 400. That's excellent value to me. Then Dawson by decision. If he doesn't get starched, he can maybe find the finish on the mat, but if that fight goes long, plus 400 feels like excellent value to me by decision. So a lot of good bets on this card, guys. Again, I mean, it's a decent card for parlays. I'd rather always take straight bets, but feel free to get in the Discord. Hit me up. We got the daily plug written by Derek. He has some of his own best bets in there. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick Morrow DFS. I got an article coming out with all my leans, I think tomorrow morning. I got to go finish that now. But appreciate you guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the links, get access to the new lineup builder if you're interested. There is a video in there kind of walking you through that. A bunch of new features. We've seen a lot of success across sports as far as that goes. Um, and yeah, really fun card tomorrow. If you're in the Discord, we'll be in there sweating, talking crap about the refs, and just hoping for good pacing on this one. But the last ESPN pay per view, we have one more card next week, and then we're off for several weeks. So yeah, let's lock in. Let's win some money this week, everyone. Appreciate you tuning in as always. Have fun. Take care, and good luck.